Shalom, and welcome back to Bnei Noach Academy, Thoughts on Life. Please remember to hit the like button, to subscribe, and most importantly, to share this insight and inspiration with friends and family. So I just want to continue some of my thoughts, some of my reactions to that quote-unquote Red Heifer Controversy. So another terrible inaccuracy that appeared in this report, I don't know what you can call it, is that they show a depiction of the altar, of a replica, almost a life-size, perhaps the actual accurate dimensions of the altar which stood in the Holy Temple. First of all, that altar has absolutely no value whatsoever in terms of holiness, in terms of being able to be used for ritual, if it's not constructed of stone on the actual, accurate, precise site where the altar stood on Temple Mount. So that's number one. Number two, it has absolutely nothing to do, no connection whatsoever to the red heifer. In fact, if you looked in chapter 19, as I advised in the previous class, look at verse 3. It says you should give it over to Elazar the Kohen, meaning to the deputy high priest at the time. Aaron was the high priest. His son, Elazar, was the deputy high priest. Later, he was his successor. And continuing the verse, and he should take it out to outside of the camp. And there, they should slaughter it before him. And then it describes in verse 4 how he would sprinkle the blood facing the tent of meeting, meaning facing the holy temple. It was done in a distance outside of the camp, outside of the city limits. But he had to do it in that direction. Perhaps he was able to see it from afar. And then what happens? Verse 5 doesn't say anything about returning, about going up on the altar. On the contrary, right there where he is, right there as he stands there, they shall burn this parah, this cow, this heifer before his eyes, and everything that's in it, everything becomes reduced to ashes. So this idea, I don't know what this notion they come up with about this altar, it makes absolutely no sense. But now that we're talking about it, just to get a little sense and idea, what is this really all about? What is behind the red heifer? Why will it be so necessary, so prudent, especially when Mashiach comes? So let me explain. You see, this was used as a method of cleansing, that is spiritually, ritually cleansing one from the impurity of tumat met, literally translated the impurity of death, meaning having come in contact with a dead body. Now the question is, we know that a body is sacred. In fact, there is a certain decorum, there's a certain protocol of how we behave when we go to a cemetery where bodies just lie and rest, even though they may have decayed long ago. But the place is sacred, it's holy. So why is it that if one touches a body, one becomes ritually impure, now is not allowed to enter the holy temple, not allowed to partake from any of the offerings until they become ritually pure again, which is going through the process and the whole regimen of having the ashes mixed with water, ashes of this red heifer mixed with water sprinkled on them. In short, the answer is as follows. When did death come about? What is death all about? So we know that as soon as Adam and Eve, as soon as they sinned, what did God say? You will die. So is this a punishment? Well, perhaps you would think so, but obviously not, because they didn't die right away. In fact, the sin occurred on the very first day of their existence. According to the Torah, Adam, I don't know about Eve, I don't know how long she lived, but Adam definitely lived 930 years. That's a long time to wait to implement a punishment. So obviously it's not a punishment. So then what is it? And moreover, Adam sinned. What does it got to do with me? Why do I have to die? He has to die. Why should I die? The answer is what God was telling him is, and this is not a punishment, he was telling him, look, what you just did, the consequence of it, the effect of it will be that you will eventually die. You see, the soul came down into the body. Look at the body as a machine. This machine was pure. This machine was impeccable. This machine, therefore, was not prone to any wear and tear. This machine was not prone to any defects. And therefore, potentially, every human being would have lived forever, because you have a soul which is pure. You have a body which is pure. So why would there ever be a reason for there to be a breakdown? However, now that you sinned, you introduced impurity, you introduced negativity, you introduced death into your system. Now, obviously, you couldn't have affected the soul. The soul is not penetratable. The soul is not effective. I mean, is not impressionable in that sense. You cannot affect the soul in that sense, but the body is. And therefore, the body will now, with years, with time, endure that wear and tear as a car does, as any machine does. And therefore, with time, it will get old and no longer be able to contain the soul in that pristine, pure manner. And therefore, there'll be death. Thus, by touching a dead body, as holy and special as that body is, but the mere existence, the mere presence of death is synonymous with sin, with impurity, and therefore the person becomes impure. Where do we see again a repeat of that sin, which brought again impurity unto people, thus bringing death upon them? That was the golden calf. The golden calf. Remember, when they received the Torah at Mount Sinai, they were all at a restart. In fact, the sages tell us in the Midrash that all the Jews simultaneously passed out when they heard God's voice, but then God revived them. Think about it. The resurrection of the dead occurred already. It occurred then. And if going forward, they wouldn't have incurred any whatsoever impurities on them, any whatsoever agent of sin or impurity, potentially, perhaps they would have lived forever, because they were all at a restart. This is a new beginning. When they sinned with the golden calf, once again, they brought upon themselves the potential for death. Thus, death was brought upon by sin / golden calf, and therefore the antidote to it is the red heifer. Red is a goldish color. Gold is a reddish color. And of course, the heifer is a cow. The cow is the, quote, mother of the little calf.